Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have a couple of interesting stories from the world of science, folks. New discoveries with AI and another article with the theory that maybe life did exist on Antarctica, folks. Either way, it's a interesting set of stories I have today. So let's get into them now with this article. Researcher exposes AI-generated papers flooding science journals. Indeed, folks. Apparently, lazy people are basically submitting stories that they basically used AI to make and not actually doing any actual research. That's the discovery I basically learned about with AI today. Either way, let's get into the article now. Scientists have noticed that AI chatbots, much like some human writers, tend to repeat certain words too often. Now they're using this habit to spot when researchers secretly use AI to write academic papers. For example, if a paper uses words like garnered or burgeoning a lot, it might raise a red flag that AI was involved, kind of like how a student might overuse fancy words to sound smarter on an essay. Sounds interesting, folks, and indeed, I probably have to agree with this statement here. Either way, according to New York Times report, a study from Germany's University of Tübingen found that AI chatbots often use 454 specific words such as encompassing or intricate. And those specific words were being used so often made people think that maybe AI was indeed used to make these papers. So, yeah, I can understand why that would be worrying. Either way, let's continue, because this is interesting. By analyzing these, researchers estimate that 13.5 to 40% of abstracts in biomedical journals, short summaries of research papers, might have been written entirely or partly by AI. With about 1.5 million papers published yearly on PubMed, a database for medical research, this suggests at least 200,000 papers could involve AI, and that number might be low if authors edit the AI's work to hide its use. Some researchers don't bother hiding their AI use. For instance, Arizona State University's Saburo Kambabahambadi shared an example on X where a low-quality radiology journal included a note admitting the paper was written by a chatbot. Sorry if I mispronounced that guy's name, folks. It sounded like it was of Indian origin, so forgive me for butchering it. Either way, let's continue. The paper even said, "I'm very sorry, but I don't have access to real-time information or patient-specific data as I am an AI language model. Other cases are harder to spot unless you know the phrase regenerate response, a chat GPT feature that lets users ask for a rewritten answer. You might not notice it slipping into a respected journals, as the blog Retraction Watch pointed out in 2013. Another example involved a paper about millipedes that included fake references made up by AI, like a kid inventing book titles for bibliography. The paper was pulled from one database, but later popped up on another with the same fake sources." So indeed, folks, people are not using AI to basically make their lives better. They're using them to be lazy and, not do any work at all, apparently. But then again, I'm not surprised. Because if you've heard about all the stories involving, college students using Wikipedia to write their, papers for college, then I'm not surprised that other lazy people are using AI to do the same. But the fact that actual scientists out of college are using AI to basically fake papers, it just shows you how lazy some of these people actually are. Unbelievable. But let's continue, folks. Then there's the case of a journal retracting a paper after readers noticed it was nonsense, including an AI-generated image of a rat with comically oversized genitals. It's as if someone submitted a science project with a ridiculous computer-made picture and thought no one would notice. As I said, folks, I'm not surprised that this is actually happening. The issue gets trickier because some academics are now changing how they write to avoid suspicion, avoiding AI-favored words like delve. According to Kambabahambadi in the New York Times, the University of Tübingen researchers and their science advances studies suggest that if these findings hold true, AI's role in academic writing could have an unprecedented impact on scientific writing and biomedical research, surpassing the effect of major world events such as the COVID pandemic. Dermody Kopak, a co-author of the study, finds this trend surprising. "I would think for something as important as writing an abstract of your paper," he told the New York Times, "you would not do that. It's like trusting a calculator to write your wedding vows. You'd expect more care for something so important." I'm not surprised, folks. As I said, there are lazy people out there who don't actually do their jobs, and scientists are some of the main, contributors to that kind of fact, folks. Yeah, I can imagine that some scientists who basically laze around doing very little research would use this to do even less work than they were doing before, folks. So yeah, I expected this with the rise of AI, and I expect to hear more about this in the future. Either way, it is interesting to think about, folks, that AI, it's not all that interesting, folks, because it's just, it's par for the course with human nature. That's what I'm saying here, folks. I'm not surprised, and it will continue to happen in the future. Do you think that if these people were any smarter, they wouldn't have been caught? Maybe, but in the future, undoubtedly, this will happen again, and people have to be smarter about it, and they'll still be caught nonetheless. Either way, let's move on to the next article. During the Ice Age, the Arctic had conditions suitable for life. Yeah, folks. Once again, we're going to delve back to Antarctica, but this time, let's hear about how in the Ice Age, there were conditions that maybe existed that allowed this cold part of the planet to actually flourish with life, or at least have life on it. So let's get into this article now. Scientists from the Arctic University of Norway, UIT, have refuted the widely held hypothesis that during the coldest ice ages, the Arctic Ocean was completely covered by a kilometer-thick ice shelf. According to their study, even during periods of extreme cold, the Arctic retained areas of open water with seasonal sea providing conditions for life. The team studied sediment cores from the Arctic Ocean floor and the Yermak Plateau. These samples contain chemical signatures of ancient algae, specifically a molecule called IP25, which is produced by algae that live in seasonal sea ice that forms and melts throughout the year. So, this is startling information, folks. And basically, yeah, I've said before that life existed, more recently in Antarctica than most lamestream scientists actually believe, folks. I believe that, indeed, there was something in Antarctica and that it did live there. But let's continue with this article, folks. The presence of this molecule in sediment layers suggests that the ice cover was not continuous and permanent. To support their findings, the scientists used a high-resolution computer model, the Earth System Model, that simulated Arctic conditions during two key periods, the last glacial maximum about 21,000 years ago and an earlier period about 140,000 years ago when ice sheets covered large areas of the Arctic. The result of the study cast doubt on the theory that a single massive ice shelf covered the entire Arctic Ocean for thousands of years. Although local and temporary glacial formations may have occurred, there is no evidence of their persistent existence on an Arctic-wide scale. There was only a short-term decrease in biological activity about 650,000 years ago, which scientists believe was temporary. Understanding the dynamics of sea ice and ocean currents in the past helps to better predict changes in ice cover and marine ecosystems in the context of today's warming climate, says Gerrit Laumann of the Helmholtz Center for Polar and Marine Research. Yeah, our warming conditions, huh? You mean how the planet is supposedly warming up? You know, a lot of scientists basically say that the planet is actually cooling down. And I have to say, folks, from all of this, it just sounds like basically it's a grift with that kind of thing going on, folks. But the fact that maybe thousands of years ago, and basically more recent times than most scientists actually believe, Antarctica had life on it, I do believe that is the truth, folks. And I believe other weirder things, but let's just say that basically this paper is right. Yeah. And I do believe it, folks. I think life did exist in Antarctica, and that the recent freezing of it was something that happened, more along the lines in our more recent memory than basically what most scientists believe about Antarctica. Freezing over, thousands and thousands of years ago, or maybe even about a million. No, I think basically what happened here, folks, is that the conditions that happened that caused Antarctica to freeze were a more recent phenomena. Now, folks, what do you believe about that? Do you think that this is exactly what happened? Because I do. I would love to hear your theories on this as well, folks, so leave them down below in the comments and tell me exactly what you believe about Antarctica and what might have actually lived there. Either way, folks, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.